Mega Man is a classic of a video game series and has had multiple entries spanning over a couple of different series, from the classic series to the X series to the Zero and even the Legend series. Hell, we even got RPG games in the form of Battle Network and Star Force. Mega Man has been through countless entries, different playstyles, and has even had a return to form in the form of 9 and 10. However, this shit wasn't holding up like it used to. In short, it looked like a Mega Man game ripped straight from the late 80s to early 90s, down to every last sprite and stage asset. Hell, even the aspect ratio was a 4:3 ratio to stay true to the first 6 games. And at that moment, Mega Man was failing to stand the test of time. Today's generation was less and less interested in this old school content and more invested in products of today's time, with insanely good graphics and better controls. At this point, it was a question of, why would we play this old school ass game when we could play Cuphead or 20XX? Mega Man as a whole wasn't having a very good transition into the new gen to begin with, so at this point, Capcom was like, fuck this, and put Mega Man on the shelf, and thus Mega Man went on an 8-year hiatus, almost a whole ass decade, until in 2017, following the success of the first Legacy collection that dropped in 2015, we got an announcement for Mega Man 11. After almost a decade of radio silence for the series, we were finally getting a new entry, and now we've landed on October 2nd, 2018. Mega Man 11 has dropped, and the game was received really fucking well. Most of its reviews are pretty damn positive, and I don't blame them. I decided to pick up the game along with the 2X Legacy collections just recently because I was getting back into the Mega Man series after years of not being too invested into it. And I used to be a Mega Man fanatic as a kid, alongside being obsessed with Sonic 2. Being heavily obsessed with those 90s OVAs that they had, that's aside the point though. When I played 11 for the first time, I died a lot. But I was astounded at how the game felt in comparison to the previous 10 titles, which is why I'm even writing this review now, because of the raw enjoyment that I got out of this game, despite the amount of deaths I went through. Oh my god! Anywho, Mega Man 11 is a damn great game, and today, that's what I'm here to talk about. So I hope you all enjoy, and without any further ado, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video.
Troy, L? You get the bag and fumble it, I get the bag and flip it and tumble it. Straight off the lot, 300 cash, and the car came with a blunt in it. Lil' mama a thot, and she got ass, and she gon' fuck up a bag. Pull up to the spot, living too fast, drop in the stash. In Italy, got 2 foreign hoes, they DM me.
To get the ball rolling, I want to first bring up the story of all things, which is actually quite coherent. Prior to this game in the classics, the story for the most part, aside from shit like game manuals and small bits of dialogue, was fairly ambiguous, leaving it up to the player to fill in the holes with their own conclusions and whatnot. This game more or less serves as a soft reboot, which is why we don't see characters like Proto Man or Bass. However, this game not only has a coherent storyline, it also gives us some backstory to Dr. Light and Wily's rivalry. We get to see them during their university days and their falling out, which ultimately leads to everything Wily's trying to achieve in this current time. The story this time around was presented really well in comparison to some of the classics before this title, which just jumped straight into the game without any type of exposition at all. The plot follows a similar formula and structure to the other classic series plots, which in itself is nothing new, except for the content that they added to this game's plot to make it much different from the other games. Wily remembers the shafted research for his double gear system, a thing he developed when he was younger, finishes the prototype, then steals all of Dr. Light's robot masters, reprograms them motherfuckers, then installs his new shit into them. It's really simple but effective, because if there's one thing that makes Mega Man work, at the end of the day, it's simplicity, whether it's gameplay or story. Another thing I want to talk about is how the voice acting isn't shit. We finally got a good cast. Voice acting for the series really started looking up when X Command Mission dropped, but when I heard the voice acting in this game, I was amazed beyond belief. All of the voices fit their characters and their roles accordingly. Blockman sounds really good. Ben Diskin was a perfect cast for Rock. Erica Lindbeck's role is adorable. No more of the shitty performance.
Must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man.
But where is Dr. Wily?
That's a good question.
No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What am I fighting for?
We've finally reached a point in time where Mega Man can have really good voices. It took like 10 games, but it happened at the end of the day. Fucking yes! My favorite voice out of the bunch is Fuse Man's by far, since he's voiced by Todd Haberkorn. Fucking Natsu from Fairy Tail. Ling from FMAB. His performance is just amazing for this character.
You scrambled my electrons. I recognize that voltage.
They were all casted really well, and it just goes to show how much they actually cared for these characters. Before I get into the main part of this segment, being the gameplay, I want to talk about the graphics for a short bit of time and how they're really fucking good. Like seriously, look at this and how vibrant it is. Is it one of the best looking games ever? No. But it's a huge change in pace from the sprite work used for the past 10 games. All of the character models, levels, and backgrounds seriously look amazing and are honestly nothing short of excellence in my opinion. Compared to the original 8-bit look of the games, the 3D graphics have a ton of advantages. For example, it can give backgrounds more depth, etc. It also makes it easier to show details in the characters and add more special effects, which perfectly segues into my next point about the graphics, because I wanted to mention how the visual display for most of the bosses and their special effects are just amazing and add so much of just fuck, I can't even describe it. The visual display is just amazing, with my favorite out of the 8 Robot Masters being either Fuse Man or Torch Man, but I digress. The game itself feels really nice to play. It feels like a one-to-one recreation of the physics found in the original classic games, but made to fit in a 2.5D environment. With there being an emphasis on the need to aim with the buster properly, hence the stiffness to control at times, especially compared to other platformers like Sonic, which pretty much rely on the momentum. Like when you let go of the D-pad or the analog stick, he takes a moment to stop, or rather, he's losing momentum. But for Mega Man, he doesn't need those type of physics because of his gameplay style. But other than that, it feels really solid and accurate to the previous classic games, with it having some of the best gameplay out of the other 10 alongside 7 and 8. Another plus for the gameplay is the fact that you're able to switch weapons without going to the menu. Thank fuck, because having to go to the weapons menu for every single weapon change is beyond tedious, and adding something this convenient to the gameplay makes the experience a whole lot better in my opinion. The shop makes a comeback from Mega Man 10 and just fucking wow, this is so useful. The amount of times an energy tank has saved me from near death is uncountable. With the shop you can, well, shop for things such as energy tanks, weapon tanks, mystery tanks, and various other items that can help you out during the stage, and my god is it useful. We also get to hear more of Erica Lindbeck's role, and Jesus Christ, she's adorable.
Ta-da! All ready. Good luck out there, Mega.
The shop is run by both Auto and Roll, with Roll taking care of the items part and Auto taking care of the parts part. Which are sort of like add-ons to the base Mega Man gameplay, like the cooling system, which shortens the cooldown of the double gear system, or the Buster Plus chip, which increases the power of the Mega Buster, or hell, even the double gear part, which lets you use both gears simultaneously and get to use this just large blast of power. Some of these parts are really busted too, like the cooling system Infinity, which is an upgrade from the regular cooling system part, which is, it just apparently has no limits. You can just use the gears as you please. No type of cooldown. The Awakener chip also lets you use your powers with no type of energy depletion. Holy shit. But they cost a shit ton of bolts, so you better be stocking up. Speaking of powers, this is the perfect segue into my next part. The powers in this game are pretty unique and diverse in how they work in my opinion. The Block Dropper is the weapon upgrade obtained from Blockman, and well, it lets you drop 4 blocks on a robot, and this is a huge help with getting rid of any enemies from afar that keep bugging you. Scramble Thunder is obtained from Fuse Man, and you're able to shoot a sphere of electricity which runs along the ground, which in itself is useful for enemies that have some type of shield or just fucking annoying. Like Sniper Joe, good lord, I can't stand that Proto Man ripoff. And Tundra Man is just broken. He shoots out this large gust of icy wind that can take down Torch Man pretty easily. But I digress. You guys get the gist of things. The powers in 11 are really useful and adds a ton of variety but me getting into all 8 would be me adding too many details, so I'll spare you all the extra 5 minutes that probably would have been added on just by speaking about the other 5. One fun thing that I want to add first is that back in the first games, Keiji Inafune originally wanted to change Mega Man's design in accordance to the power that he's using, and in 11 we get to see this concept brought to light, and my god are these designs great, with my favorite out of the bunch being either Blast Man's or Torch Man's. The level design for me was mostly a mixed bag, since there were some stages that I'd really like and others that just had its personal goal to make sure I left the stage feeling some type of anger, like I wanted to just chuck my Joy-Cons across the room and hit the TV screen, shattering the whole setup. Though I will mention that the levels do pose some sort of challenge, whether it's the annoying kind or actual challenge instead of annoying to play challenge. However, managing to triumph over these stages after multiple deaths, in my opinion, is what makes the payoff so great, which segues into my next section. I'm going to be bringing up some of my own personal pros and cons with this game. These things both increase and detract my enjoyment, but will ultimately decide on my final score. The game has multiple difficulty modes, with there being newcomer, casual, normal, and superhero, which for the record makes the game much harder, obviously. What the? Yo! What the heck? This game is also entry level, meaning anyone can get into it despite it being the 11th game in the whole series. For the most part, the level design, the sub bosses, and the robot master bosses are pretty creative in design. Some of my favorite bosses in the game being Fuse Man and Tundra Man. The bosses as a whole pose enough of a challenge to be satisfactory to beat once finished with them. The game has a shit ton of replayability. At this point, I've beaten the game at least 3 times by myself despite some of my personal gripes with stages. Though some of my cons are, there's unfair enemy placement at times which can make the stage so unnecessarily tedious. The game itself requires a level of self-discipline to get the most out of your playtime. That way you won't want to chuck your controller at the TV screen half of the time. And remember when I said half of the stages were creative? Yeah, I bet you don't remember me saying half, but instead all, because half of the stages, while not being full on trash, fucking bugged the hell out of me. Which is the perfect segue to my next section. This is a little bit of a rant thing I have going on, so excuse me if I sound somewhat irritated, but to start things off, Acid Man stage can go to hell. With the tiny spider bots, the long jumps that you often can't make and end up falling into the acid, and the asinine amount of spikes that you have to dodge and weave in the water section, this is easily one of my least favorite stages out of the whole lineup. Impact Man stage isn't inherently bad, in fact it's pretty good, but the amount of Pickman and dumb bullshit that can kill you in this stage is ludicrous. Why do these motherfuckers have the aim of a pitcher with that pickaxe? That can lead to so many unfair deaths, especially when you're in a position when you can neither shoot nor move, especially when over bottomless pits, and combined with the Mets in that one area of the stage. Oh, don't get me started on fucking Bounce Man. And for this, I'm not even complaining about a certain aspect. Nah, I'm talking about the whole set piece. This stage is gimmicky in the worst way, with all these balloons all over the fucking place like this is a kid's party at Chuck E. Cheese. This level is the epitome of tedium, combined with the dumbass balloons to where you need to perfectly time your button inputs just to get from point A to point B. And you can't even cheese the bitch with Rush Jet because you have these stupid motherfuckers that knock you off of Rush, leaving you to have to wait again for them to reappear just to kill them off, then move on just to get hit by another one. Rinse and repeat. Tundra Man stage is the worst offender. This is just plain unfair with those stupid ass wind carry jumps that you have to time. And don't even get me started on this yellow bastard coming back. I get it might have been for nostalgia and that's fine, but I genuinely have discontent for this boss. After a couple deaths you memorize his patterns, which makes him easier, but even then it's still the biggest pain in the ass to deal with. And I know some of you are like, bro, you just suck at this game, get good. But I have died multiple times, and even beat the game more than once. And even on my third go, this is still managing to annoy me in some way, shape, or form. And to end my nitpicks off on a high note, I want to bring something up that Gerard from The Completionist mentioned, and that's the sound design of the game, which for the most part sounds very modernized, and that's fine, but I really miss the old sound effects from the previous classic games, and overall they fit more than these newer futuristic sciencey sound effects. All the same, I don't have too much of a problem with the sound design, though if it were more true to the original classics, it'd be much better. And with all of that out of my system, I can finally get on with the last segment of the video, which is just an extra section. First off, I just want to say that the game soundtrack is just fantastic and is just full of bangers from top to bottom, especially the instrumental version of all the stage tracks. My favorite one being, you guessed it, Fuse Man. And if y'all didn't know, there's a bonus vocal track in the OST which seemingly didn't make its way into the main game, but it is still a banger nonetheless. You guys know I'm an artist, right? Yeah, of course you all do. And something that I love doing is looking at concept art for games. And 11 has no shortage of amazing ass art, with even some designs that didn't make the final cut, like this apparent Rock and Rush fusion and Roll battle armor. I would have loved to see this make the final cut. Also, getting to hear more of Erica Lindbeck's role is just... You know what? Let me stop right there. The game is filled with a shit ton of cool stuff. The game also went through some interesting concept stages for the 3D models and character designs for Roll and such, with Mega Man's original 3D model being, well, modeled more after the sprite from Mega Man 8, which in my opinion would have looked way cool, but it ultimately doesn't fit the whole chibi look as well as the cooler one. It seems there's a lot of cool shit that went on during the development of 11. Overall, I really enjoyed the game. Though I have my own personal detractions that put me off from the game, I still can't deny the amount of fun I did have while I was playing it. And with all the drama that was going on in my life at the moment, this game was just the thing I needed to take my mind off of it. It was a fun escape that I'm glad I spent $30 on. Anywho, I rate this game 8 megas out of 10, and I highly recommend it as a Mega Man fan. You will definitely enjoy this, and if you don't, then it's to each their own really. But with that, it's about time I call it a video. This was my first game review, so hopefully I did well and hopefully I can do more in the future. If you all enjoyed, be sure to go ahead and leave a like and subscribe since you're still here. If you don't want to miss any uploads, then you can even hit the notification bell. Oh yeah, this will also be the debut of my new outro, but I hope you all enjoy that. And with that, it's been Shibou. Shibou out. Keep it for real, fam.
Count what you have now, don't count what you don't have.